So I'm interviewing Submarine, pretty good friend of mine, plays sniper, Asian player, one of the few Asian players I actually interact with, and he's played a decent bit in other regions as well. But today I'd like to talk to him about some of the concerns in the Asian region and a bit about Coden as well. But I'll start off with some more simple, sort of competitive, history-focused questions for himself, and go and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Submarine. I played a lot of regions. I think I've played every region except South America, I think. Unless there's like an African league I'm not aware of, but yeah. I've
Not
played a lot
really.
of leagues, a lot of regions. Ton of Highlander experience in like every region at this point, basically, yeah. And I used to be an co-admin with ClariTea in the past, for UGC Asia specifically. Uh, I think the highest division I've quote unquote played in is Asia 4 Div 1, but I wouldn't really consider myself a Div 1 player necessarily. I play a ton of Sniper and Highlander, Scout Medic and Sixes, and that's basically it. I have a decent amount of connections and friends in basically every region, except South America.
Okay. So, what got you into Highlander initially, or competitive initially?
What got me into competitive was actually, I think it was because I wanted to just I don't know, I just wanted to take the games a bit more seriously. I wanted to get good at the game for some reason. Well, I think I regret that choice now, but I don't regret it that much necessarily. I still had fun getting
Okay.
good, quote unquote.
And
But my main inspiration for getting into it and getting like guided through it was probably through a guy called Del Dongo. He's a invite spy. I think some people might know Del Dongo. He was I watched the stream a lot.
oh yeah, for sure.
He kind of indirectly taught me a lot about like spy and Highlander and all that. Gave me
Right.
my speech pattern and sense of humor as well somehow.
The schematics.
Yeah,
So
he gave me the
sorry, as you're saying.
nothing.
Oh, so what was it like starting out in Asia Highlander, in Asia in general?
Oh, so the era that I got into Asian Highlander was kind of like it was the weaning area of like the golden age. I feel I kind of got into it a bit late. It was definitely not primetime Highlander, but getting into it was it's not an easy thing to get into at all in the slightest because the player pool is so small, the skill gap tends to start, getting wider and wider as it keeps going on. Like even now, I still see a lot of like, some people in Asian Highlander plugs complain, "Oh, can we just ban new players? Like, or they suck so bad. Like, holy shit on this all." And that was kind of like my experience. I'll be real. When I first started playing, like I think I signed up for Spy in my first pug, and then said one of the pug admins literally told me to get on heavy because I was just like mega feeding on Spy. So the new player experience isn't amazing for Asia Highlander. It's a pretty tough experience
Okay.
because yeah.
Um, so in reflection of your other region, like you playing in other regions, is there anything you felt Asia did particularly well at, like as a region of play?
So as a region of play, Asian Highlander has got to be the worst region possible.
But like, what would you say its strongest benefit is? Like,
The strongest benefit of Asian Highlander is probably once you're in the community, you're kind of never getting out of it. Like, you'll basically just be here forever, kind of. Like, no matter like how bad, no matter like how bad you are, as long as you're in the community, nobody will actually care about how well you do. It's just getting into like the general, you know, consciousness of like players, I guess. Like as long as you get into it, it'll be fine eventually.
and what was it
People will
like for
stop caring.
you? Sorry, what's that?
People will just eventually stop caring about like
Stuff.
how you perform at some point when you
Okay.
get into it.
So it's like pretty closely knit, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So what was your experience getting into other regions like?
Oh, getting into other regions was honestly a matter of just putting out an LFT post. Honestly, mostly just started with an LFT post. But for Australia specifically, it was my IRL friend called Jamal. His in-game name is Jamal, and we go to the same school together. And he started playing Oz Fortress, and he said, "Hey, you should play Oz Fortress." And I'm like, "Really?" So he got me into like the first seeded like open team for my first season, and I ended up winning open Osfort in my first season, which was like for like 200 ping. I think I got accused of cheating halfway through as well.
Nice. Okay.
For Europe, I just put out an LFT post and then just contacted some guy, and then I just got in. For RGL, same story. I just put out an LFT post, contacted some guy, and then I just got in.
So what was your...
what was my what? Sorry.
No, you were saying that was basically...
There's basically no difficulty for me getting into like out-region teams because I don't know. I like because like according to like my Asian medals, quote unquote, right? It looked like I was a good player.
Right.
Which back then I probably wasn't, honestly. But you know, I still got it.
Okay. So, what was your initial impression of the other regions?
I immediately knew that they were 100% better, and they were a lot bigger, just entire like on another level of big. Because one division in ETF2 like open is like the entirety of Asia times 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So how were you treated by the community and by the teams and players as an out-of-region player?
Honestly, they treated me pretty well. I mean, I think it might just be like a team, like the players in the team kind of thing, but I was treated pretty fairly well in the teams that I was in. However, other teams, I believe, did not appreciate my hyping. Especially in Australia, a man named Cobra truly believed that 200 ping helped me snipe better.
Did it feel like the leagues particularly helped you, like accommodated you at all?
Oh, RGL definitely did not accommodate me in the slightest. RGL, in fact, tried to hinder me as much as possible because there's a certain limit of out-of-region players that you can have on a team. So,
would you say that's them directly trying to hinder you, though?
I don't think it's directly me they're trying to hit. I think they're just trying to prevent, like, entirely European teams from showing up, basically.
But it's just like, yeah, like their priority isn't really on out-of-region players.
Exactly. So I think they're just trying to, like, prevent, like, an all-European all-star team from showing up one day and just kind of ruining the state of a certain division.
Yeah. So let's go back to what motivated you to start playing in other regions on like higher ping at weirder hours. You said you became an admin, right?
Yes, I did become an admin for
ATF2?
UGC Asia. Yeah, UGC Asia.
And how did that go? What were your experiences?
Oh, what was my experience with that? It was a pretty horrible experience. I'm gonna be real. The reason why is mostly because the UGC Asia head admin, ClariTea, is very bad at his job.
How so?
Like, judgment-wise. So, and, okay. It's a matter of where do I even begin? Because there's a lot to get into, I believe. So, I think the most obvious thing that basically every Asian player knows is that ClariTea is very corrupt as an admin. And he only does things that will benefit him, essentially. So let's say he'll always seed his team first in like a division, right? So he has like an advantage from the start, basically. Or he'll always give favorable matchups, like he did with one of his teams that he was in. He always gave the favorable matchups at some point in sixes. He always took the side of his team that he was in. Prime example would probably be Ambulus, probably one of the best Asian Highlander teams to have ever existed, and the only reason Sedna ever kept him on the leader was because he was in that, and he always favored the team over like the, you know, from an unbiased instead of an unbiased opinion.
I see. And you'd say that's like pretty harmful, especially for like a smaller community like that. Yeah,
it is. It is very harmful for a smaller community. Like, it is probably the most detrimental thing to have ever happened to Asian Highlander. I think the most egregious thing he probably has done was probably coerce a team into forfeiting.
As an admin.
As an admin, he coerced one of a lower ranking team to, or like a lower skill team to forfeit against Ambulus. He coerced them, and it was only to screw over the point differential that a certain team would have had if they had if they had actually played the match essentially. So he did it to screw over the point differential possibility because I think the team that was in competition with Ambulus were tied for points, but the only difference was the map points basically.
And did the community like get upset over this? Did they try and do anything?
Oh yeah, definitely. People were definitely upset, but only a little bit later when everybody started knowing about it. I'd say. I mean, I think even then, I think only a select people actually did care, because Highlander is pretty minimal or like a pretty secondhand game mode in Asia because six takes a lot of priority.
Okay, and what happened then?
I think even more stuff came about Clary, about like his other misdeeds. Like, I think for a certain Korean team, he misinterpreted what the Koreans were saying, and he banned one of their players for about 2 years. I think for insulting an admin, quote unquote. Even though if you translate his sentence in Korean properly, he never said any slurs, nothing against the admin ever.
And did any of the other admins try and do anything about this?
I definitely tried to do something about it. I told General Nick about it, I told Fortnite about it, I told Snowblind about it, but I don't know, they just never did anything about him, so...
And what happened to you as an admin?
Oh, I just kind of resigned, quote unquote, basically. I mean, I kind of just got, like, shadow fired, is that how it works? And I just, like, left the server and just got my rules removed, and then joined back later as a normal player.
Was there any specific catalyst to that?
I think it was just everybody being fed up with it, and just straight up blatant abuse of like admin power was just on display. Honestly, I think everybody just got fed up with it, especially one player, Gale. He was the one who made of a document in the first place.
Oh yes, the document. Yeah. I'll go and showcase that for a bit now. So, question.
Yes.
RSL was a thing, right? Like RSL Asia?
Yes, RSL Asia was a thing.
And what happened with that? Why didn't it take off if UGC and the UGC admins were so corrupt?
I genuinely believe that it's because the metal sucks. There's no other reason other than the metal sucks, and that's literally it.
Okay.
And besides that, I guess RSL doesn't really advertise that hard to Asian players as much. Like, they don't really try to. Like, UGC has always been like the main thing for Asian players all the time. So it's hard to like get away from it, I guess, even despite the admins being, very corrupt. And RSL Asia they definitely tried. There was I think like 10 teams at some point, and I guess it's okay. 10 teams, single div. Honestly, nothing new in Asia. A single div and 10 teams, and all varying degrees of skill. Nothing new really, but I guess that was kind of a peak season. They did try to do 2 divisions, but they ended up reverting it back to 1 division at some point for one of the recent-ish seasons. Besides that, I think it's just every Asian player, even in casual, just kind of gravitates towards UGC because that's like the most popular thing.
Right.
Like, so they don't really know about RSL or any about that. The only people who play RSL is like probably the people that got into competitive and kind of played it for a season or 2, and they just know what RSL is. But for the first-time teams, they don't really sign up to RSL, I believe. They just don't know about it.
And how long has this whole clarity issue gone on for?
I don't know, ever since he was an admin, basically. For like as long as his career has been a thing, it's always been an issue.
And UGC is just perfectly complacent in this. Like,
I don't know. Like, I think that General Nick Not Snowblind. I've told like all three of them, I think,
right?
personally, that ClariTea is doing something completely wrong, and he's definitely abusing his power.
And were they
And
shown any proof?
I mean, I literally showed them the evidence,
Hmm.
like the text logs, the seedings, literally everything, and they just. I do not know why they don't fire him, honestly.
And it's kind of funny because it's like you look on any like 90% of TV threads, and anytime there's like anti-RGL sentiment, General Nick is like hopping on it, like playing the PR game. But then it's just like they're just complacent in this, just the strangling of a region essentially.
Yeah, it is kind of insane how he just let ClariTea do the things he does. Even recently, like he's still the head admin, right? And then he played. Or he was rostered on the silver team because now there's actually 3 divisions in ATF2 now. Thank God. However, he was in a silver team, and that silver team, um, I believe, still got like somewhat biased results, even if it wasn't shown, like biased matchups somewhat. But I don't. I think. Actually, no. I'm wrong about that. Somebody else managed the silver matchups. However, admin still strong armed the silver admin into accepting a lot of his requests.
Hmm.
So there's that. So and also there was a banned player on his team, technically, or so the Highlander season finished before the main sixes season, right? And in this main sixes season, there was a player on the same team as this Highlander team that got banned for alting and account sharing, right? 2 people, and those two, the account in question that was being account shared was also on his silver team, right? And the stats, like the accuracy and like the DM, kind of matched up with the person who was account sharing with a Div 1 player, right?
Right.
And in grand finals, everybody could see it. This guy was playing way better than usual, and
This
no,
is
they just,
This is at the top of the document ish.
yeah, no. Like this was really recent. So what the document you're looking at now was kind of whatchamacallit, kind of
Outdated.
outdated question mark,
Wow.
but it's still a lot of stuff that he did back then. But after this, like not much stuff has happened, but there's still some stuff that he did after this. But that's basically a collection of everything he's basically done wrong in his career, essentially.
And when was this document released?
I think last year.
So 2021.
I think last year or 2 years ago. No, it was 2 years ago actually.
The 2 year speed run.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
So what do you think the Asian players are can do about this?
The thing they could realistically do is just go to RSL, but nobody really wants to play RSL, I think.
How do you think you could get them to switch to RSL?
I genuinely don't know, besides just trying to tell them about it or just really trying to drill into their head. I mean, a lot of new players don't really know about this whole ClariTea stuff. Like, a lot of new players, necessarily. Like,
Right.
most players aren't concerned with it. Like, the new players that get into it, they just kind of don't give a shit most of the time.
Right.
However, the old players definitely do know about the ClariTea stuff, and they definitely would probably rather play RSL than they would rather play UGC. So I think it's a matter of just telling new players to abandon UGC and just trying to boycott the league, I guess.
Right. Like what happened with Australia and UGC. Just like some sort of consistent combined community effort. And why don't you think that's been seen so far, like it was with Australia?
I just think the new players don't really care. I think they just want a shiny medal. That's kind of it, really. And as a new player, like their main priority is just playing. They don't really care. They just want to play.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate to hear. I think if my memory is right, in one of the earlier RSL seasons, ClariTea was on the staff team as well. Yeah. So like season 6.
Yes, ClariTea and Setna were on the admin team, and it kind of went about as well as you'd expect.
Yeah, for like RSL, you're talking about.
Yeah, for RSL, it went about as well as you'd
Yeah,
expect to have host one admin.
and maybe that kind of like killed off a lot of the goodwill. Maybe it just made them go back to UGC because it seemed kind of pointless.
I think it just made it seem like nothing would ever change.
Right,
Basically.
right. So it's like they kind of just systematically killed the hope there.
Yeah, kinda. I think ClariTea was a horrible choice in
Hmm.
picking as an admin.
So you
I mean,
think?
Sedna, the other admin, I think as a player he's fine. He's like a really good player. However, as an admin, I don't think he was suited for an admin position yet. At that point,
Hmm. And I guess
so
yeah, for like new players, it's like the word of like random other people who they might not know or trust against just like the head admin of the region, right? Who's been
yeah,
that place for so long, who's supported by General Nick, by UGC, by those complacent sources, yeah. And it's
yeah.
like,
So
yeah,
it's
I can sort of see that.
kind of unfortunate.
So you think maybe just like Australian involvement, like help, like I'm not necessarily Australian, but just like from people from RSL, kind of like more outreach, more awareness, more people talking about it would
If
kind of help.
yes, if they knew that Clarity would have essentially like killed the hope that RSL would have been different, then yeah, they kind of killed off the hope that RSL would have been different
Hmm.
by
And
just picking Clarity as an admin.
do you think that's something that like you would be interested in trying to pursue going forward, or are you just kind of like do- done at this
Mm,
point? Have you done your time
as in like becoming an admin again.
for like RSL or so, and kind of like spearheading that initiative?
I I think that I think it would really depend on like how much I will care about this game in like a month or so. Let's say in a month, if I'm feeling it, I'll probably would bother to do it. But if I just don't feel like it in a month, probably not. I'd rather just let somebody else do it. Somebody
Hmm.
that probably like cares more than I would at that point. So
Who do you
yeah,
think would be like for the job up for the job? Who do you think could do it?
it's extremely difficult to say because every person is somewhat biased to their circle jerk in the Highlander community and all that. But I think you'd have to bring in somebody so completely unbiased and just doesn't care necessarily to have a balanced kind of Highlander experience. Somebody that just could not give half a flying fuck, basically. Probably
Hmm,
like
I see.
Six's admin because they really just wouldn't care. Honestly, they would just kind of like, okay, you play this, you play that. I don't care. They would be completely indifferent to everything. Essentially, if you were to pick a Highlander player, they kind of have the kind of you know prerequisite knowledge that like this, that they're my friends, this and that. Like I know them. If you were a Sixth admin, I just don't think you would care in the slightest. You would just be so indifferent to it that you would just end up being fair to everybody, essentially.
Right, right. Okay. So that's clarity out of the way. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. I appreciate your story there. I'm assuming it's probably something that like caused you a great deal of stress just having to deal with. Yeah.
Yes, it was absolutely horrible. It was a source of a lot of my hair falling off to BH. I lost a
I
lot of
see.
hair.
Okay. Um. So what are some other concerns you kind of have about the Asian region?
I think the overall toxicity, to be honest. I mean, I am definitely a problem with the toxicity sometimes, but like, I don't know. I think just the overall consensus that a lot of players do have is just new player bad. Please never want to play with new player. Please stop it like that.
Hmm.
And a lot of new players just kind of get discouraged from playing, I believe.
Okay. So what's the server situation like in Asia? Who usually provides?
Qixalite all the damn time. There's no other option but Qixalite, so essentially Qixalite does have a monopoly over two regions, like on what servers to use. There's no escaping Qixalite, basically.
Hmm.
So
Is it
if
something that they've
Quix
particularly misused though, or is it more of just like a benign
um
thing?
I don't I feel like monopolizing an entire region is probably pretty bad in terms of just like because the server provider would have essentially infinite power over like the league itself because they can just choose not to provide servers or boycott the league.
Hmm, right. And I guess especially if you have like a staff team that you just can't trust, right? It's like they could
Yes.
really set some horrible precedents up, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they could.
So what do you think could be done to change that?
I just think the only thing that you could realistically do is just get your own server and just play on your own server and just not have to worry about basically like a third eye watching over you, uh, like with the admins or like the server provider itself watching over you. So I feel like whatever is said in the server is a league issue, not necessarily a server issue. I think like whatever is said should be dealt with by the league, not the server.
Right,
That's
right.
that's what I think.
Okay.
And whatchamacallit, because Asia Fortress is very lax in the toxicity department. Like nobody really gives half a flying fuck about what you say. You could say the N word, you could say call people as many slurs as you want. Nobody would care. Literally nobody could possibly care. And you look at the chat logs of like the Asia Fortress admins, right? The current Asia Fortress admins, you will definitely find like at least 2 racial slurs, 3 derogatory like slurs towards like gay people, like everything.
Huh. Okay. So, do you have any like? Do Australian players normally like? Are they aware of these issues? Do they kind of try and help at all?
I'm pretty sure Australian players do know about the Qixalite monopolizing their entire region. I think a lot of people don't like the fact that Qixalite can just choose to ban somebody for saying something, in like a private scrim, private this, private that. Like as long as it's private, I don't think there's any point banning somebody in private essentially,
Hmm. Okay.
because it doesn't make sense why you should ban somebody for something they said in a private Discord that shouldn't anybody should know basically.
Right. Right.
I think whatchamacallit. But Australia as a region itself, I think the higher tier you go, like in terms of skill, the more racist it gets. Like that's just like an observation. Like you can kind of see it. The racism kind of like ramps up the higher you go, for racial slurs at least.
It's pretty interesting to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think they could do about that?
What could they possibly do about it? I mean, Prem in Oxford kind of never will never change. Honestly, it will always be the same kind of few players, and then maybe 2 or 3 like new rising players that grinded up to that point. But I don't think Oxford Prem will ever really change from being like toxic racist or not toxic, just kind of racist. Like the racial slurs aspect, because you in like Twitch, like outside of Twitch streams and like cast matches and like outside of like in-game chat, you never know what they could be saying, but you can kind of know that they're probably saying a lot of stuff that they normally can't.
Right.
It's kind of obvious, especially if you know some of the Prem players. They just do say those things. You kind of know it.
Okay. Do you have any other like sorts of insights to offer about Asia as a region when it comes to Team Fortress 2?
I think in terms of like in Asia, I think like deathmatch skills is king. Like DM is king in Asia, basically. Doesn't like you can be the absolute stupidest motherfucker on the earth, and as long as you have DM, you can win div free in Asia.
Okay.
DM is absolute king in Asia. I feel like the game sense part kind of takes a backseat up until you actually have to start thinking in like this like higher like the 1 tier above div free, basically, or like low div 2. Like
Right. Okay.
you can actually climb all the way up to Div 1 on sheer DM prowess alone, technically. You could. So DM is absolute king in Asia. Besides that, like I think Asia is just kinda as a region because of like the really weird like season scheduling, like the one really weird off branch or weird like branch of a branch league that formed Pure League. that kind of messed up the scheduling. There was because Asia Fortress is in it's only in its like 19th season compared to ETF2, which is in its like 46th season or some shit. It's like thinking about that, Asia as a whole is pretty underdeveloped compared to like other regions. I feel like in terms of like just you know meta. I don't think the meta's like behind or anything. It's just like I don't know. It just feels way less advanced or like way less just you know it just doesn't feel the same as ETF2 I feel or like RGL because RGL prior to that there's DSCA seasons and RGL advanced teams like the top like number one RGL advanced teams like sixes could literally just play Div 1 in Asia and probably like mid to top Div 1, which is kind of yeah. So I think Asia being super small and not having that many seasons to play initially, I think the region kind of stagnated a bit because a lot of players just kind of like quit like after playing Div 3. I think I don't know. They just kind of disappear. Some players literally just disappear off the face of the earth, and you never hear from them ever again. And like
Right.
and and in Div 1, like the highest division in like Asia, like one team disbands, then it's over. Like your team's just guaranteed playoffs if one team disbands. So like there's not much to fight for even because there's always the super team that always dominates every season no matter what, and then there's nothing you can do about it. It extends to Highlander as well. There's always like some kind of super team that forms, and there's no point fighting.
And do you think maybe like a healthy precedent could set in once some of these underlying social issues are resolved?
I don't. I think because of how Asia is, it's just like Asian culture itself, right? I think you can't necessarily fix Asia as a whole. You can't really remove the toxicity. You can't remove the blatant racism, like every phobia on the planet. You can't really remove that because of how Asia is culturally. Like Asians, I feel grow up with a very you don't really grow up like open-minded. You just kind of like you're just taught this, that, and like your parents will teach you, yo, don't be gay. Your parents will probably tell you like, yo, if you marry somebody that's gay, you're disowned, etc., etc.
Wow.
And even in like Mongolia, right, dude? I know at least like four, 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 like four people that are like in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and all that. They just straight up say the N word. They just say like they just call people the N word. It's like to like describe them in a negative way. Like, and I'm 90% sure that probably extends to like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. They always like hate some kind of race, but they just like downplay. Like with Singapore, it's like I hate Malaysians. Malaysians are stupid. I don't know, like stuff like that.
Right.
So you'd have to like fundamentally alter like an entire country and how they grow up to change how like Asian TF2 is. Basically, the most you could really do is what Qixalite is doing, which is just ban people for like racial slurs or like that, like just slurs in general.
So what you're saying is it's a history diff.
It really is kind of like a history diff.
Do you think that's something you see in other games as well, like MOBAs, League of Legends, stuff like that?
I mean, you go. I hop on CS:GO, right? And I get into a Hong Kong server, and the first thing I see is like mainland Chinese people arguing with Hong Kong people and the Japanese people, and they're calling each other stupid dogs. Like you just fundamentally like could not change how Asia is, like in every game, because it is just 99% racism. You just can't change it. You really can't. I mean, I guess it's like higher levels, tier 2 and all that. Once you start get affiliated with orgs, then at that point you cannot. But like everything below that, oh, you can definitely get away with like everything basically.
And do you think it results in just like a lot of outcasts who aren't that as like agreeing with that sort of culture, who go to like other regions?
I mean, you can't even really go to other regions in Asia because like the routing, if you're like, it kind of fucking
Right.
blows thick sometimes. So you can't really escape it to Australia even if you wanted to. I mean, I can escape it to like Europe or like RGL and all that, but like I don't know, some other people just can't. Like I know like there's like some amount of like Asian players that are like identify as like, you know, trans and all that, and like I don't think people really give a shit, honestly, but they will definitely call them like, you know, every slur in the book if they could, or if they want to. And I've seen it. This guy called Mao is like he identifies as trans, but you know, everybody's like, haha, it's stupid, you know, that.
Hmm. Okay. Are there any other like sorts of topics you want to talk about, or like questions that you wanted to ask and answer about yourself, or like your experiences, or like just Asian culture and gaming?
Asian culture and gaming. Oh boy. Um, Asian culture and gaming. It's very counterintuitive because all, you know, Asian parents don't want you to play games necessarily. Like it's kind of like, you know, the stereotype. You know, if you know Doctor, you get out of my house, like that, right? And but you know, like Koreans are like known for like being like cracked at like some games and all that. So and you
StarCraft.
know, StarCraft and all that. So it's kind of like really counterintuitive how like Asian like gaming culture like formed. I feel because like your parents are definitely like not agreeing with what you're doing most of the time.
Hmm.
A lot of like Asian players, I feel, just play like without their parents knowing. Really, only when they get signed to like an org and all that with like money attached to it, then your parents will probably start accepting it. So you know, and like gaming culture in Asia, like I don't think people play play games that seriously in Asia. Anyways, they really do have better things to worry about. 99% of the time, people just play it because they just want to, not because like you know they want to get a career out of it. There's like way better things to do. I mean, I guess if you're like in the, you know, living in a first world country like, you know, the States, I don't know, Germany, Europe, I don't know, anywhere else, you could probably get away with like wanting to do gaming as a career. But Asia, definitely not. You definitely wouldn't be able to, and you know, people just know that you can't, so they just play it casually.
So there's no like banning of Asia.
There's definitely a Banny of Asia, but even then, he just doesn't really care that much as Banny does.
Hmm. Who is it?
It is a man named TJ. Is people call him the Banny of Asia, mostly because he just wins every season, but also because he's probably the most talented player in the entire region.
I see.
He called me autistic yesterday, I mean, like 2 days ago.
That's not nice.
I don't really care.
You should punch him on the nose.
You know something? I'm 99% sure like almost every like Asian player, right, is like they have like the same like body shape. It's like a skinny twink.
that's
You
that's an
know that?
interesting comment.
Exactly. Like every Asian player that you will meet is probably one extremely fat or two extremely skinny, and there's kind of like no in between. I only know like two buff guys in like that have played Asia so far.
Do you think that's just TF2 players as a whole, though?
No, I don't think so. I think like you look at like Pro League and like Valorant and from Korea and all that, or like you know Tier Two Valorant and like um in like Southeast Asia, and you look at the players and they're either like twinks or they're either just like you know very fat. Like I don't really see an in between. I don't really see like buff players. I like the only buff players that I have ever seen play like you know uh like is probably like two people in Asia, like just two people that are like unironically very healthy and like buff. But like
So,
besides those two people, nah.
so if you have like a banny of Asia, do you have a bald banny of Asia?
A bald banny of Asia?
Yeah.
What is the bald banny? I've never heard of bald banny before. What does bald banny mean?
Let's see. There. Okay, search up bald banny TF2 and you'll see what I mean.
Bald banny. Like that. See, I guess kinda. You know how I said TJ? TJ uses his real face as profile picture, and there kind of everybody knows what TJ looks like. There's like a image of like TJ, where it's like a poster of like TJ that says that's like give me 80% heals or some shit.
I
guess that
respect
would
it.
be like I guess that'd be like comparable to compared to just bald manny because it's like recognizable. Because TJ is definitely you know,
Well, you
if
see,
you want to win, you heal him.
I'm
If you want
asking.
to win, you heal him.
I'm asking if there's a bald Banny though. Oh,
Bald Banny. Like, I don't think there is like an equivalent image of like a bald Banny equivalent. I mean,
aw.
like, I because like nobody really used their real face besides TJ. I think everybody just uses like an anime profile picture, like an abstract profile picture, I guess. I mean, like,
You do have an anime
I
profile
guess
picture on Steam.
on Steam. Oh no
Yeah.
no no! Did you know I sold my account actually? Like that is not my account anymore. I just sold it. Just ended up selling it because I just didn't care.
I'm glad I asked you on Discord instead of Steam then.
Do you still have that one added?
I think so, or maybe they removed me. I don't know. That
Well,
would be funny though. Like I just start reviewing you, it's just like a random person. It's just secretly coding.
because that that person right is he was one of my old teammates and he was Japanese, so you would literally just be getting Japanese responses. He'd be like, "Oh, nani?"
Hmm. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, so you know, I did making it. I did end up selling it for like a pretty decent amount of money. $400. You know, yeah, I have 4,000 hours in TF2. That's like 10 cents an hour. You know, I'm kind of living the high life.
So are there any other big sort of like things you want to talk about?
Big things. I mean, I guess. I think I've more or less covered everything that is wrong with Asia as a whole. Is just like rampant toxicity. Players kind of like give up after a season. Like live, do super small player base. Admins are pretty stupid in UGC, especially. AFC admins are fine. Underlying toxicity problems like everywhere you go in like Asian gaming.
Okay.
Everywhere you go. And besides that, like, it covers more or less everything essentially. It's
How did you feel about their map pools? About like just like
cool.
really weird maps, like I believe like Altitude, Pro Mountain Lab, Clear Cut,
Okay,
Bagel.
you know how like RGL Highlander has like Demento as like a raiding spy king, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of have had that. His name was Sedna, and he was like the most undefeatable player ever, essentially, at Spy. Like you just would never beat him ever. Like don't even try, right?
Okay.
And so he became admin as well, and he wanted to just experiment a lot with maps like CP Altitude and Pro Mountain Lab. And of course, I don't think anybody liked it at all in the slightest. Nobody really enjoyed the maps, but it was kind of interesting to see, I guess. But,
Right.
I mean, it's just interesting, not really fun to play. It was interesting. The overall consensus we got from like playing extremely weird maps in Highlander was we should just stick to staple maps. I feel
Stable maps such as Bagel.
I'm not sure about like Bagel. I think they just added in Bagel because like the general reception was Bagel was enjoyed by like everybody that wasn't in Plat.
I see.
So
I could see it being like a fun pubbier map.
And yeah, I mean basically it is like,
Yeah.
a lot of Steel players seem to like Bagel, so they just put it in because I guess it's fun for new players. For Plat players, nah, it's pretty not fun. It's
Detroit.
Like, yeah, it's worse than Detroit. It's like
No way!
I'd argue because like the Bagel meta right is if you don't have point, just hold W. If you have point, hold S. Like it is so unbelievably unfun to play at a higher level.
That sounds like Overwatch 2.
Exactly.
I'm a genius. So Did have one that just came to mind. Let me see if I can get back in memory.
Oh yeah, about the CP altitude meta that came up.
No.
Playing.
What was that?
So the strategy we came up with was because on the first point, because the skybox was so large, it was literally have your demo run the base jumper with with stickies, right? And he just flies around like an AC-130.
Did you have your pyre jetpack jump as well on your soldier bomb?
Nah, it was literally like no, I guess so, but it was only to kill the sniper because like sniper was like the only thing that could kill like your demo.
Altitude meta.
Yeah, the altitude meta was just have like a carpet bombing demo and have everybody like on your team focus all the hit scan classes on the enemy team for missile.
Are there any visual demonstrations of this?
I think I could pull up a demo of somebody trying to attempt it, but like I'm not sure when it happened or who was the demo or who was it against. All I remember was that I played it and it was really funny. That's all I remember.
Fair enough. So, do you have any like people in the Asian community or just in general that you would like to like give a shout out to?
Let me look at my look at the friends list. I think from Australia, shoutouts to Burnt Pizza. Everybody in Burnt Pizza, they were very helpful and joining their team and winning. Yes. Let's see if other people from Australia would be people from DM Lords, my open team. You know, they were absolute homies. Especially Just Jazz. He came in because my medic got banned for pedophilia. You know.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think from Asia, I guess definitely Jamal, Gale, Moonchild, Aaron, Cassie, Sherlock, Veron, what was his name? Flam, Karma, and Yuki. They're my homies in Asia. Redux as well. Let's see what else. I think a public statement I would like to say is, fuck Clarity, fuck you. Like, I wish you'd get fired, honestly. Please remove Bagel from the map pool in Highlander.
Base.
Please add back in Cascade. I want to play Cascade more over like Bagel. Shout out to. I wonder if my IRL friends would somehow figure out a way to find this. Just in case. Shout out to Sheetal, Peter, Indra, Matthew, Andrew, Kevin. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. How about any Europeans?
Any Europeans? I think people from Gata Discord, probably. Yeah, especially like Matt. Yeah, Matt.
Matt J.
Yeah, Matt J. Toko, Honcho, like everybody in the Gata, Mofu. They're pretty cool people.
Okay.
I like reading their worldwide channel because it's 99% French, and I take French, so I'm learning a lot. I'm just reading like whatever they say in French. You know, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Thank you,
and
guys.
Then do you think there's any like I don't know, just interesting community figures in like the Asia HL community?
Interesting figures.
Yeah, like in a good way.
I'd say Fade. Fade is the admin that came in to replace me, and he's been trying his absolute darn hardest to try and deal with whatever Clarity is throwing at him. He's absolutely trying his best to try and deal with it. iFun, yeah, I have to tell the story of iFun if you're bringing up interesting figures.
Sure.
So the story of iFun goes that he got banned for cheating in his first season, and his second season and his preceding seasons. He ended up becoming the most hated Pinoy player on the entire planet, essentially, to such an extent that he basically got the entire country of the Philippines banned from pugging. Right? I know it's like I know it's insane to think that one player could get an entire country banned from pugging, but it happened.
Well,
And you know he's been a very influential figure in spearheading the meta in interesting ways. He's absolutely the most crackhead individual you will ever meet in terms of just coming up with new metas. He is the one. He always comes up with really the the defining metas in these weird whack ass maps and that we see in Highlander now. Is especially the CP altitude meta. He came up with the idea to hold low grounds in CP altitude on third point, and it was actually the defining meta. Is to hold low ground.
no way.
Yeah, he's an absolute crackhead,
Okay.
and I could never match up to like what he comes up with on a daily basis. Like you should see him play heavy. Like it's inspiring how he plays heavy.
What's his daily ritual?
His ritual on heavy appears to be if he sees the soldier is dead, he immediately like runs to concrete in the most direct line possible.
So he's like a bee.
Yes, he's just like the most like I don't know how to really put it. He's just a really interesting like player, but you just kind of he's not really a player that you'll ever see like normally. I feel like usually you have like your very standard, you know, very like cookie cutter players, and when you have him, he does not fit into any mold. He's very mechanically gifted, yes, on medic, not anything else. I think, but you know, he's definitely comes up for a lot of metas. He sees the game in a way that we just don't.
Would you say he ponders the orb as part of his daily ritual?
He definitely ponders the orb. There's no other way he could come up with these things that he does, like holding low. He goes against every instinct that I have as a Highlander player sometimes, and I just kind of have to go with it, and you know it works, I guess. Like he's pretty, he's pretty like influential, I'd say. Recently, I mean, he became like the Sixes admin recently, for ATF2L. And he added cough high pass to the map board.
Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit.
And he's trying to get the vaccinator unbanned.
Oh, that's a crime.
I don't know how that would go for him, is if he's going to try to get the vaccinator unbanned, but you know. But
you had me at the first bit.
You know, like he only wants to do it because he's really good with the vaccinator. That's why. Because when Asia Fortress had the vaccinator unbanned, right? Literally nobody had the mechanical talent to use it, but he did, and he single-handedly ended up getting it banned because of how unbelievably unfun it was to play against him. So yeah, he's very influential in many factors. Getting his entire country banned from pugging, that's one. Negative, like, you know the integer limit of, right? He has like an integer limit like of downvotes on his Age 4 profile. Like you just can't overestimate or like explain how much of an impact this man like had on like Asia, especially like, Div 3, I feel.
What would he bring to the table as the head admin?
He would settle a lot of disputes through heavy boxing.
I think that's a step in the right direction. You heard it here.
His main idea as like a head admin, he told me, was if there's a dispute, you will heavy box to settle it.
I agree with this. We should launch a coup d'état.
And as an head admin, he would definitely bring in some experimental maps. And as to how well it will go, I'm not necessarily sure if I can say it will go. If it will go as I expect it to, or how well as I expect it to, or how well I expect it to. But you know, you never know. He has some interesting ideas, but I think will eventually are pretty stupid, like at first glance. But the more you think about it, the more it kind of makes sense in a twisted way that he sees it. He sees TF2 in such a different way I can't really explain. He's definitely like inspired a lot of people, and definitely inspired me to think about TF2 in a different way. Definitely.
Okay. And do you think there's like a way you'd suggest interviewing?
I think from Asia, somebody you definitely could interview and get a good result from is, iPhone, the guy I'm talking about. He's definitely a man of many words. He will definitely say a lot of stuff that you might be interested in.
Does he like Jetpack?
He is a firm believer in the jetpack side theory, I believe.
Okay. This person is my best friend. Anyways, okay. I think I'll go and end the recording then. Do you have any ending things to add? Ending notes?
Ending notes. I am LFT division free. Please pick me up. I think that's it. Please pick me up. I am LFT div free.
Alright, that's a wrap. Goodbye.